Welcome everyone to the Solar for Schools presentation, based here in the York region. We have a number of people who are going to be joining us today. My name is Chris Stewart. I'm a local science communicator. My job is to introduce everyone who's going to be taking us through this overview of the program today, and to handle some of the question and answer at the end so that it doesn't get too tricky. So we have joining us today Shannon Jackson, who is the UK Projects Coordinator for Solar for Schools. We have Rana Singh and Bridgitte from Hollybush Primary School. They're going to be talking to us about the actual process of installing the solar panels within their primary school. And we have Richard Lane, who's the Secretary and founding member of York Community Energy here in York, who are working with the Solar for Schools people to try to build up the presence of the Solar for Schools project in the York region. So to get us going then, I'm going to hand over to Shannon Jackson. As I said, she's the UK Projects Coordinator for Solar for Schools, to talk to us about the project, how it all works and how it all fits together. So Shannon, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris. So my name is Shannon. I am the UK Projects Coordinator with Solar for Schools. So my job is working with our wonderful schools who are interested in solar. I'm really happy to have Bridgitte and Rana here today from our recent project at Hollybush Primary in Leeds, which is our work with Leeds City Council as well. So we'll chat about that a bit later. But just to provide kind of a brief introduction to the Solar for Schools programme, and Rich will kind of touch on a bit more about our partnership with York Community Energy and how it will come together for York schools. Look forward to questions a bit later. So Solar for Schools, to provide kind of a very overview introduction. We began in 2015, and we are working across the UK. We are a specialist programme that is looking to remove the barrier of financing from solar projects for schools. So we offer schools either majority funded or fully funded projects, which means we cover either all or most of the costs for schools, trying to open up solar opportunities for any school that's interested. With our partners Solar Options for Schools, who are also working in Germany and in India, we have over 150 solar systems. But in the UK, Solar for Schools as a UK programme that we're funding solar panel projects, we have about 67 schools across the UK specifically. So we are kind of working both nationwide and a bit more internationally as well. The programme is designed not only to kind of remove the barrier of funding, but I've put here kind of a peace of mind opportunity. It's a programme that is run by our schools themselves. So we're a community benefit society, which means that every school that joins us and develops a solar project with us, they also become a voting member of the organisation, and kind of a democratic voter within how the programme runs long term. What that means is that our programme's really developed to support schools long term and to kind of have that peace of mind. So as well as having no costs in the immediate installation, after installation we also cover schools for 25 years of maintenance and upkeep, annual inspections, insurance, to make sure that schools are protected from any kind of long-term costs as well. We have an integrated education programme, which I'll touch on a bit later, but we believe in kind of bringing schools and students on that journey. So a mixture of kind of workshops, assemblies. We've got some really cool online software and programs that schools can engage with, and that's all covered kind of by the programme itself. So it's designed to kind of protect schools, work with schools long term, and develop a really great long-term relationship. And that is kind of the Solar for Schools first introduction. Just a bit more about us. We are one of the kind of larger community benefit societies, community energy organisations working in the UK specifically. So I mentioned that we, with our partners Solar Options for Schools, we're also looking internationally, but in the UK we have about 67 schools, potentially 68 after we finish the next Leeds installation with Leeds City Council. But this means that we're working with approximately kind of 28,000 students who now have access to our workshops and our assemblies and all of the online programs that we're developing, including the new Solar for Schools app, which has been really well on the Play Store, which is really exciting. And we've brought in over kind of 4 megawatts of new renewable generation within kind of our school-wide network, which is fantastic. So working UK-wide and offering open opportunities for schools, which is brilliant. In terms of how the programme works, essentially the programme, the organisation, the Solar for Schools Community Benefit Society, is the kind of organisation, the entity that sits at the heart of the programme. It raises money to fund schools so that they don't have to find the cost for installation or that long-term maintenance and education, which then pays for the project for the school. Some schools are harder to make work, so Hollybush Primary was a great school, big roofs, lots of potential for kind of putting loads of panels on, big user of energy, big need for kind of clean energy generation. And then you have some schools which are slightly harder to make work, so that's why we offer fully funded and majority funded opportunities. I can speak more a bit later about how we find out what level of funding we can offer schools. But essentially the Community Benefit Society raises the money. We then work with the school to find the best system size for their project, the best project size, which is with our design team. And then we work with the school to kind of develop that project, make sure all the checks are done that are needed to get solar panels on site. The school then gets first access use to the clean electricity. So what we try and do is we cover the cost for the school, and we also try and beat the school's existing mains price, so that from day one of the installation they can save money on actually using the clean energy as well. So Hollybush is a great example of that. They also had access to grant funding from the public sector decarbonisation scheme, so they've managed to secure a really good price for their electricity. Because we're a not-for-profit entity and organisation, 100% of our project profit also goes back to our schools directly. So we just, the schools use the clean energy, that generates an income. Anything that is not used to recover costs for the programme to carry on financing more schools goes back to the school directly, and they can decide whatever they want to do with that the profit, whether it's kind of investing in other school resources or looking at other kind of zero carbon projects. That's totally up to the school, and we're designed to kind of support them with that. And then over that long-term period, 25 years our projects last for, the school is covered for kind of looking after the schools, and we provide the looking after the solar panels, and we provide the education to schools. So it's designed to protect schools from any kind of long-term liability or costs. And then at the end of the 25 years, schools can choose to either keep their panels or to have them removed, which is both offered by the programme, and we take on the costs of that as well. So that is kind of an overview of the Solar for Schools approach and how we work with our UK schools. Obviously, there's a few things that we're trying to support schools with, but it's essentially trying to mobilise schools to be able to take the action that they want on climate change, to inspire their students and make sure that they're acting to protect them in the future in relation to the climate crisis, and also to kind of link schools up with other schools, not only across the UK, but also internationally. So really exciting kind of community, particularly around the education side of things. So trying to link schools up to support further action and to kind of motivate them further. Last couple of slides, just to touch briefly on kind of the education opportunities within Solar for Schools. We have an in-house education team, which are absolutely wonderful, led by our Head of Education, Sarah. So we have kind of the standard workshops and assemblies where we go into schools. We specifically focus on clean energy because that's where we understand, and its relationship with climate change and its importance. And then we've also got these kind of range of online resources which have become increasingly important during COVID and after, trying to open up opportunities through, we have the Solar for Schools website, and these are just some of the kind of programs and software that our schools get access to after their installations. So opening up kind of Solar for Schools ambassadors, which is kind of an online panel design software, so that students can go onto our website, they can design their own solar systems for their school or for other schools, and we've got a UK-wide database so students can kind of get inspired with schools across the UK. They can look at their own energy graphs, so they can see what their solar panels are doing in almost real-time data, which is really exciting. Just allows schools to actually visualize energy, or they can join our Global Citizens program, which is where they can start sharing learning internationally, which is just some of what we're offering. And then in terms of kind of the first steps, which I think Rich will touch on, we work with schools all across the country, and any school that's interested in solar, if schools are interested to see what they can do in terms of funding and what Solar for Schools and York Community Energy can do together. Rich will touch on this, but the only thing that we need is kind of some energy data from the schools, and then we can see what's possible. So I will leave that as my introduction, and look forward to future questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shannon. That's a really good overview of the program. Now, if you've got this far, if you've tuned into this presentation, clearly you're interested in the program and wondering what it's like to actually put this theory into practice. The good thing is that we have a couple of people here who can talk to us about that. From the Hollybush Primary School over in Leeds, who have recently come on board with Solar for Schools. We've got Rana Singh, who's a site manager, and business manager Bridgitte. So I'd like to invite them to come and have a chat to us, to tell us what it's like to actually go through the process of becoming involved with Solar for Schools and getting solar panels actually put up on the roof and installed in the school. So Rana and Bridgitte, over to you.
Thank you. Like you said, my name's Rana Singh. I'm the site manager at Hollybush Primary School in Bramley, Leeds. Sorry, my business manager's just had to leave. Typical, we are still at school, we're still working away. Going back to Shannon and Solar for Leeds, when this first all came about, we thought, wow, Bridgitte, thinking costs, come on, how much it's going to cost us. But going through with Shannon, worked it all out, it was fantastic. The biggest thing when we said, right, okay, we're going to start work, I thought, brilliant, about time too. Hollybush is about 17 years old. You've got the slides, I'll let you have a look at the slides. It's not a normal shaped school, it's more like an S-curve. And then I was thinking about the solar panel, how it's going to look and everything else, but it looks absolutely amazing. But most of all, we are a school and it's down to us to educate our children about our carbon footprint and looking after the environment. The children are fantastic, they're very excited, they want to learn more, but like Shannon says, she'll work with us to educate our children. As the site manager, at first it was scary because obviously we still had staff and children while the work was going on. We are quite fortunate because we do have a big car park, so when the deliveries did come, we could cordon it off and our children could still play. The actual work, when it was being done, it was done professionally. The team were absolutely brilliant. Obviously, I've got to think about the staff and I have to think about the children's safety, but that was never in doubt. But thing is, Shannon was involved with it all the time. She kept us informed of what was happening, and from my point of view, it was brilliant. But Bridgitte can explain more on the money side of things. So, but yes, win-win for Hollybush. Really proud of that.
Thanks, Rana. So, Bridgitte, maybe you could say a couple of things about the financial side. What's it been like at your school from that point of view?
Of course. Well, we were approached initially by Leeds City Council, who said they'd obviously been lucky enough to secure some funding for the solar panels. So obviously it wouldn't be a cost to school, because that obviously was a concern. And we've had some projected figures and we're anticipating that we will see cost savings of around 50%, which is significant. I'm yet to see, obviously the panels only got finished just at the end of July. We've just come back to term, we're on week 4, and I'm just yet to see any energy bills come in. So I'll be very excited when they do come in. But looking at the numbers and working with Leeds City Council, it looks very, very positive. So we're very excited. And also, I'm also keen to see the income generation from the panels, obviously when we've been on holiday.
Well, look, thank you so much for that. And I have to say, a potential 50% saving on your energy bills sounds pretty good. So, keep us posted on how all that goes. And in particular, thank you so much for joining us. We can hear in the background there that school is still definitely going on in the background there. So we really appreciate your time from both of you. So thank you, Rana. Thank you, Bridgitte. I'd like now to hand over to Richard Lane, who's the Secretary and one of the founding members of York Community Energy, who are working with Solar for Schools to try to bring this fantastic program into more schools in the York area. So, Richard, I'll hand over to you now. You can tell us about YCE.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Yes, so as you say, we've heard a lot about Solar for Schools. So the question is now, of course, what part does York Community Energy play in this? And we've been working with Solar for Schools for a while. We heard about them last year, and we started talking about how we might work together in the summer last year. And in February this year, we signed a partnership agreement. So we're a local community partner for them. And we couldn't, obviously it was coronavirus lockdown time, so we couldn't do the traditional kind of handshake photo opportunity. So we mocked this one up over Zoom. Our long-term, YCE, our long-term aim as an organisation is to see locally owned and managed renewable energy generation in the city of York. We want to see York becoming more resilient. We want the community to be able to contribute toward the effort to get us off fossil fuels. And Solar for Schools have agreed to help us with that. They are helping us to build capacity. They are giving us quite a lot of support and training as well as we go through this process. So we're learning masses from them. They're great partners to work with. And ultimately, of course, the choice of what happens to any given array on any given school is up to the school itself. So, we hope that schools will want to sort of take part in that vision and want to contribute the panels as a local resource for renewable energy generation for York. But the main thing is we're very happy that things are moving forward, and we are seeing this kind of community level renewable energy generation starting to progress in York. Okay, so in June. In June, we got support from the council. So we have been very well supported by the council, both on the Solar for Schools angle and also on the other work we're doing with energy advice, retrofit insulation advice, and energy advice and domestic insulation energy reduction. And so they wanted to look through all the documents that we've got, all the sort of the process and the legal terms that Solar for Schools have, and they passed that by the legal people, and they agreed that they would support us sort of officially, and so they've endorsed us to the schools that are still in council ownership or council control, I should say. And that was a big boost as well when we got that. So we are sort of being pushed as part of the council's decarbonisation efforts in schools. So let's see what sort of benefit that has given us. We've got leads on 16 schools in York. So there's 16, there are about 80 schools in York overall, but I mean, we are also interested in schools, not just strictly speaking within the York City Council area. So 16 we've had leads to, and this is the kind of thing that as a community group we can do, is that we have about 120 members. We have these kind of networks, and a lot of people will know people involved with schools, students, teachers, staff. And so it's been great. We've been getting a lot of leads from our members and our network. And just to say, this number has actually gone up by 5 since Wednesday, which is the last time I gave this presentation. So these numbers are changing all the time. It's September 2021 now, and if we circulate this as a recording, these numbers will be out of date. But that's a good thing. We got 9 responses. There's 9 schools with whom we're in contact with staff. We are, and most of these are at the point where we need to get energy data from them, and that's quite a faff, especially at the moment with coronavirus, all the things they have to deal with. So we totally accept that, that's not going to be perhaps the top of their pile at the moment, but there's 9 schools we're working with, and we're hopefully going to get energy data from them, and we'll be able to put that forward to Solar for Schools, to them to build a model around and actually make an offer. So far, they have made, there have been 2 schools that have had offers made to them. So this is basically when Solar for Schools says, okay, well, this is the price we think we can sell you electricity for, cheaper than the grid price, and then that will be tied to inflation over 25 years. So that's a major step. So that's 2. That's now sort of balls in their court, and we're waiting to hear back. One of those, we know that the schools are happy with it. So the governors, the staff are happy, and we're just waiting final legal sign off from the council who, and I don't mean to be undiplomatic, they're taking their sweet time. But anyway, it's all progressing. It's just to give you an idea of how these things are going along, and as I say, changing rapidly. So that's great. Now, the big question, of course, is what can you do to help? And firstly, just tell people about this. We really need this word of mouth. We need people to be endorsing this, just telling people about this, so that it becomes something that is widely known to schools. As I say, 80 schools in York. We've got a lot more we'd like to get in touch with. I mean, of those 80, probably half aren't going to be, they're not going to have the right roof, or it's going to be a listed building, or the roof's going to be in not a good enough condition to host solar panels. So we're never going to get all 80, I think. But there's a lot more we can do there. So yes, please tell everyone, put people in touch with us. If you have any leads, if you have any schools you'd like to recommend, any people who you know at schools who are sympathetic and might like to champion this, drop us a line, schools@yorkcommunityenergy.org.uk. And if you want something more tangible, then we've got these postcards. That's what that is on the right there. We've got these postcards which are designed to go to schools via students, perhaps, or directly to teachers or whatever. If you know someone who might be sympathetic to it, or someone at the school, just write the name here and give that to them. And the idea is that goes to the teacher, that goes to the staff, that ultimately will arrive at the desk of the person who has to make the decision, who has the power to do that, and they will hopefully get in touch with us. And we have been giving these out to the show and to York Environment Week stall, and we've already heard back from a few schools who have said, oh, I've been given this postcard, what's the deal about this then? So that's great, that works. If you want some of these, again, drop us a line, schools@yorkcommunityenergy.org.uk. We are going to do a print run of those, and we'll get them printed in quite large quantities, and we can circulate that. So if you want some, drop us a line, let us know, and we'll get some to you.
Thanks, Richard. Well, as we've been going along in this presentation so far, there's been a bunch of questions which have been coming through on the chat from the live viewers of this presentation. So I just want to go through a few of those and direct them out to our various speakers. The first one that's come through is about the agreements between Solar for Schools and the schools that are involved. The question is, what exactly is the agreement for maintenance and upkeep of the solar panels, and how are school business managers reassured that the schools will not end up picking up the costs? And I'm imagining there's probably a few people out there watching this with the same kind of thought. So Shannon, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What does the agreement say with regards to the sort of the ongoing maintenance costs and the upkeep? Will that land on the schools, or are they protected from that? How does it work?
Absolutely, Chris. The kind of Solar for Schools agreement, it's laid out to kind of provide that long-term protection and take away the liability and the cost for the schools. And also we work with a lot of kind of council maintained schools, and that's something that councils are really concerned about sometimes as well. So it's designed to take away that from both the schools and landlords. So talking councils, dioceses, academy trusts. They don't want those kind of long-term costs or liabilities to be there long-term, despite wanting to go solar. So in terms of how the agreement works, schools are covered for the duration of the project, so the full 25 years after installation. At the end of that, that is when schools get the opportunity to decide if they want to keep the panels, in which case that's kind of a different question. They can decide that at the time, or if they want to have them removed. So both options for the schools, designed for kind of long-term flexibility. In the 25 years, essentially the agreement outlines that the school will be protected from those costs. So we cover schools for any costs within that period, and that includes things like annual inspections and making sure panels are working correctly. It includes kind of additional costs that a lot of schools might not even be considering at the time, around kind of insurance, or there's business rates that are charged on solar panel projects, things like that. And then you've got kind of, I guess, the things like kind of equipment needing to be replaced, any accidental damage, those kind of unexpected, unforeseen circumstances that might happen in the 25 years. Another thing that we find that's really important to schools is making sure that the cost cover and the maintenance and upkeep also works with them being a changing building, and particularly kind of changing their roofs. So schools are obviously in a constant stream of kind of having roofing works redone, or needing to kind of have them repaired. So it's really important that within our programme we also cover schools for that process as well. So if we need to move panels about, or we need to take panels off the roof temporarily, we also cover those costs within the maintenance and upkeep. So it's designed to kind of cover any possibility within that 25 years, and that's written into the agreement, and it sits with Solar for Schools as a programme, who is the asset owner of the panels, so that schools are protected legally and contractually from any of those obligations, and so are the landlord as well. So it sits with Solar for Schools as the asset owner, and the programme covers the schools and the landlords for the 25 years.
So I just wanted to say also that this is a major reason why we're so happy about working for Solar for Schools, is that, you know, we looked at projects like this ourselves, and it's incredibly risky, because if you install solar panels on one school and they want to shift their roof off, you know, and you have to remove them, that's a massive risk to a project. If you're like someone like Solar for Schools is a specialized installer, specialized you know, manager of these projects, if you go, okay, well, one school's they've got a portfolio, so effectively it's de-risked. So that's why, you know, we think we can achieve a lot more in York by working with these sort of specialized providers than we could do if we were purely locally. So that's another explanation for why we should be you know, bringing them to our city.
So it sounds a little bit like you've taken a lot of the issues that schools would have to think through if they wanted to put solar panels on their roofs, if they wanted to go down this line of you know, sustainable energy or renewable energy for the school. You've thought through all of those things and said, don't worry about it. We've sorted all of this out. Here's an agreement which takes a lot of that stress and a lot of that liability away from the school. Does that sound accurate?
I mean, I wish I could take the credit for it, but it's come from the Community Benefit Society model, and our programme working kind of slightly differently than a lot of organisations in the UK, because we're run by our schools. So because schools are our voting members, so Rana and Bridgitte, as staff in one of our solar schools can join things like our annual general meetings. They can join things like our director board, which is kind of people from across our projects who then take decisions on how the programme runs in the future. So all these kind of ideas and tweaks to the programme to make it work for schools has actually come from them. So I get to kind of do the good work of spreading that message to schools, and often the kind of response that I get is like, oh wow, that sounds too good to be true. And it's a trust building exercise to kind of work with schools and make it something that that they do trust. But yes, it's been designed by the schools in our programme, and I think that's where you kind of see the difference. It's for schools and it's run by schools.
Run by people who actually understand what schools are going through in order to try to get involved in this project. Look, on to the next question. Questions come through. This one I'm going to throw to you, Rana, as someone who's actually worked on this within a school and has recently got it up and running. Someone's asked, what are the barriers that you faced? What were the issues that you came up against, or the things that you were concerned about as you went into the process of working with Solar for Schools and actually getting solar panels up on the roof? Could you talk us through that one?
I can, thank you. My main concern was I was hoping to get the work done during the major holidays, but that wasn't possible. So I'm now thinking, okay, I've got solar panels coming, I've got large good vehicles coming on site, and I've got children and staff here. I'm thinking, how is this going to work? But we sat down with Shannon, and we just arranged for all deliveries to come either first thing in the morning or last thing at night when the children and staff are most of them gone. So that works really well. The other thing was then whether we put the solar panels on the roof while we had children in school, because obviously our playground is where they used access to get onto the roof. It's also our playground is our fire evacuation point. So try to work around things like that, thinking how it's going to work. It was perfect, not a problem. The installation team were fantastic. We just communicated all the time. If there was going to be anything tricky, we would make sure that work had been done out of school hours. But just generally speaking, it went absolute perfect. Touch wood, it wasn't a problem. But I think it's teamwork. That's the biggest, and communication. Keep in touch with Shannon, with the install team, everything. I was just absolutely panicking at first, but looking back, not a problem. And what I would say to any other site manager, if they want to come have a look at our school, Hollybush, or if they want to contact me with any issues, that's not a problem. Thank you.
You'll be inundated with requests to come out for a site visit now, Rana. You'll regret
No,
saying
that's
that.
fine.
It's a very generous thing to offer. Listen, one of the other questions that's come through, and it refers back to what you said earlier, Rana, which was about the projected energy savings. And I wanted to revisit that because I wanted to check whether or not your situation was representative. So can I just check with you, and then perhaps we'll go to Shannon for a bit more information there. Can you just remind us, what were the projected energy savings that you were looking for in this project? What do you think you're going to be getting out of it again?
I'm hoping our electric bill is about 45,000 per year. So we're looking at half of that. So we're predicting saving around about 22,000 to 23,000 pounds a year. To me, that's a member of staff we can employ at school, or possibly 2 part-timers. For our end of the day, all this work we're doing is for our children, our children's future. Them kind of savings, that's a full-time member of staff or 2 part-time, and that is absolutely brilliant for us. All schools are all tight at the moment. Money is a problem, but the saving we can make is amazing. So that's what we're hoping for, which I'm sure we will achieve.
Yeah, now that's quite a significant savings. Shannon, over to you. Is that representative of the sort of thing that schools can expect? Someone who's watching this now and thinking, that's amazing, can we achieve that? What's the general situation for schools, particularly ones who are thinking about joining through this York-based program?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I was going to say, Hollybush is I guess the golden child of solar on schools specifically. They're an absolutely huge school, needing lots of as Rana said, using lots of energy, and so a project like this also has the potential to save a lot of those costs. The other kind of more unique thing about Hollybush and the other 10 schools that we've taken solar with Leeds City Council was that there was an additional source of grant funding that came through the project. So usually with Solar for Schools, and when we fund projects, we work through a crowdfunding platform. So we pay back funders over a long-term period. So we basically have a network of people across the UK who really want to support schools in going solar, and they give a little bit of their savings, and that's how we fund projects. What we did slightly differently with Leeds City Council is they also won, I think, around 25 million across the city for loads of different projects. Some of that grant funding through the public sector decarbonisation scheme went towards their schools. So we worked with Leeds City Council to kind of do a bit of a hybrid funding model to achieve an even better result for schools. So schools in the Leeds City Council project are looking at that really great kind of price reduction of about half price electricity. In terms of how typical that is in kind of when we're working around schools across the UK, that's a kind of a really, really great outcome. When you had the feed-in tariff, it was more common. Now what we do within the Solar for Schools programme is we always try and beat schools' mains price electricity. So depending on how viable a site is for solar, if it's big, if it's got big roof space, if it uses a lot of energy, and it's in a good sunlight location, you can save a couple of pence on per unit of electricity. And sometimes it's kind of just under their mains price. But what we always try and do is we're always trying to beat that mains price so that schools can still save money. We're always hoping for the kind of outcome that Hollybush has seen, but unless we get grant funding in projects, it's usually less than kind of half price electricity. But we're always trying to beat what schools are currently paying, and that's majority of the time possible.
So regardless of whether or not they can get close to the ideal Leeds situation or not, you're still going to be looking at energy savings and savings of money. You've got the educational program, and you've got renewable energy on your roof without all the troubles that come with going through and thinking that through for yourself. You're working in partnership with a group who have thought all of that through with you. It sounds like a win-win regardless.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think just having that, I mean, maybe Rana can speak to this, but I think it can be really scary kind of going on that journey by yourself, and knowing where to start in terms of getting solar. There's a lot of steps to the process, and so what we're trying to do is kind of have a guided approach where Rana, Bridgitte, works with someone like myself who knows that process and can kind of guide them through it and do all the boring things like the planning and the kind of grid applications and all of that, and the school just gets to enjoy having panels on their roof, having the education, and being able to share that with their community. So it's trying to be a guided process as well.
Rana, had you thought about doing solar before getting involved with this project? Had you gone at any stage down that path?
Yes, we did look into it. I should say I did look into it, but it was down to funding. A lot of these schemes I looked into was you buy now, pay later, and then trying to get it through with governors and through with Bridgitte, the business manager. Some of the deals just didn't look right, and then we were blessed. Shannon came across, and the package brought forward was absolutely fantastic, where there were no costing to the school, but we were then reaping the rewards from the panels. So yeah, this was the best option out of all the other options I did look at. So thank you, Shannon.
Well, thank you. It sounds like there's a lot to think through there for a school that wants to get involved. The good thing is that they know where to go. They simply come to you lot and can talk through this particular situation and work something out. So I think what we should probably do, Richard, if you're in agreement, I think we should probably stop the recording on this one, and we'll say a formal thank you to all of our speakers, to Richard, to Rana, and to Shannon for joining us, and thank you everyone who's joined us for this session. We'll bring to an end the formal recording of this so that we can put this one up on the web for anyone else who's interested in it as a resource. And then everyone who has joined the session today, if anyone has any further questions, you can stick around and ask them after we finish recording. So let's formally bring it to a close. Thank you very much for joining us for today's session about solar for schools.